Hi, my name's Stephen Aitken. I'm Managing Director of Aitken Real Estate in Cheltenham, Melbourne, Victoria, and we've been operating in residential real estate and property management since 1989. Today is our first live streaming broadcast with Facebook, and right from the start, let me apologise for any rambling or technical issues that we might encounter. And hopefully I stay on point for our chat today. So the topic at hand is marketing and advertising when you're selling your home, and particularly in vendor paid advertising. Now, one of the things that we should get off as point number one is when you're selling your home, what is your property worth? For most people, when selling their home, if you ask them, and you ask most agents, what they're going to say to you, my house is worth what a buyer will pay. We contend that a house is worth what a skilled negotiator can persuade a buyer to pay. So the big question is, how does a real estate office find that particular buyer? Well, real estate agents would say to you and have you spend enormous sums of money in finding that buyer, which is really interesting because what happens is that you're going to spend, often these days, most offices will ask you to spend somewhere between $1,000 and sometimes $20,000 and $25,000, and I've seen up to $30,000 paid by vendors. So it's interesting in what you need and what you need to sell your home and what agents would have you pay for your home. Pay for in advertising. So let's start off with some things that you need. The first thing is, in today's digital age, just as we're broadcasting to you now, is you do need to be on the internet. Now, in Victoria, the dominant real estate portal is realestate.com.au. In New South Wales, I think it's Domain. Canberra has its own particular bent of popular portal, and I think it's the same in South Australia. What's interesting is that agents would have you have a feature property. There's a whole variety of things that they want you to do when you're on these portals and websites. But the truth of the matter is that buyers, and this is what we're going to have to talk about when we're talking about marketing and advertising, the buyers do what buyers always do and have always done. And the first thing is, genuine buyers will look at all pages on a website. They won't stop at page one. Lookers will stop at page one, but certainly the real buyers will look at page one, they'll look at page 5, and if there's 30 pages of properties within their criteria, and that might be the features or it might be the price range. But whatever the case may be, buyers will always go through all pages, and that'll apply. And if you seriously step back and have a think about it, if you buy anything on eBay or anything online, you tend to do quite a lot of research, and you will go from page 1 to page 10. So that's one of the big things. And the other thing is the hidden agenda in most of vendor paid advertising, and this is what people don't realise, is that it's in the benefit of the agent to have a lot of advertising, because what they do is they get to promote and profile themselves. And just remember that in a racket, which is the definition is of a racket is something that's not legitimate. And I think most people would say that real estate advertising is a racket. I think that most agents know that it's deep down. I think that they know that it's a con, which is a deceit that can be repeated and repeated and repeated. And with real estate advertising, one of the other things that you have to ask yourself, and one of the things that I find very interesting, is that when you are in a suburb, whether it's Cheltenham or any other suburb around Australia, you will have agents that promote auctions or even private sales that ask vendors to pay substantial advertising. And what they will do is they will ask for 1,000 or 5 or 10 or 15 or whatever the amount of money is. And they'll repeat that exercise on a house in the same street. They'll repeat it on a house in the next street. And the question you have to ask of that office or any other real estate agency is, why do I have to keep paying all this money when you're a real estate office? Don't you keep a record of all those buyers that you claim that you have? Where are they? Don't you keep a central record of buyers? It's a very odd thing. Now, it used to be in days gone past that we used to keep these manually. Now, today, with databases and situations like that, it is absolutely impossible to believe that agents don't keep these records, and that if they don't, then probably you've got the wrong real estate office. The other thing that happens with real estate marketing, or particularly real estate portals, is that today they're promoting real estate salespeople rather than the agency. So what happens is you ring on a mobile number. What's to say that that salesperson is half decent and does their job? It might end up being that that's the inquiry, it goes to that person and that's where it stays. But if you get an agency that has a central area where they record all the information, you're more likely to get a better outcome in price, because you're probably going to get more, what we'd like to think, skilled negotiators talking to buyers, but ultimately you're going to get at least multiple salespeople hopefully addressing that buyer's need and maybe suggesting other properties. So going back to trying to keep on point and looking at all the other aspects of marketing when you're selling. So there's certainly the real estate portals. The other thing, just to quickly on that, is realestate.com.au rates in Google rankings probably somewhere between 14 and 26. That's pretty much Australia-wide. Domain rates about, as Australia-wide, I think about 62. Then all the other websites after that. So the Aitken Real Estate is much the same. We rank way down when compared to those sort of real estate avenues. So the number one is realestate.com.au, and everything else is an opportunity to sell more advertising to the sellers so that they feel that their property is being exposed, but quite frankly, it doesn't do a whole lot in the scheme of things. The other thing that's used in the industry, which is mildly amusing to me these days, is things called personal websites. So 123 Baker Street, and they have beautiful photos, and sometimes the agents spruiking the situation or the things of the house. What's interesting about these websites is, in the industry, they're called vanity websites. So agents know that they don't have a lot of impact. What they do is they look really good and they're a really good sell to the vendors. So what in fact happens is there's more money that passes through the agency to promote their company logos and all the rest of it. So vanity websites, all those sort of things are really very minor in the scale of genuinely finding buyers. The next part about it is boards. Boards are a really interesting aspect again too. Ultimately, when an agency is trying to find buyers, what you really want is a buyer to ring the office and speak to a skilled negotiator. That's what you'd like to think would happen if you were selling your home. But often what you're getting is a messenger. So what they do is, we are not great promoters of putting addresses on websites or great photos on boards. What we want to do is make sure that buyers within a price bracket or looking at a board don't make decisions from photos and copy and all the rest of it. What we want them to do is make a phone call to speak to somebody that can be a persuader, that can advocate the benefits of buying that particular home, and if not, then perhaps some other home that we may have or have seen. So boards, again, some of the boards you go past, you can see from the moon, they're that big. And the other part about it is some of them are on main roads where you're driving past at 60 and 80 kilometres an hour, and there's no way you can read them. And some of the photos are at the front of the house, which is just staggering when you think about it. So again, these boards cost between $400 and $700. Then you've got mighty things like backlit boards and lights over boards and all those sort of things, which again, they're a great sell for vendors. They look fantastic. Neighbours and friends are all impressed. And the opportunity is for agents to impress other potential sellers. But do they sell the home? And the answer is pretty much no. What happens is, provided you've got a board with an agent's name and their phone number, you're away and racing for the most part. Another aspect of that I think is that comes up quite often is that I've noticed that agents love to charge these days is for copywriting on ads. Now, I've had a look at a lot of ads over a lot of years, and one of the things that I've noticed is that they are no literary giants that anybody that writes these, and even the copywriters, you have to smile that they're charging $400, $500 and $600 to write copy that, quite frankly, is pretty basic. And I might just add that I was on a website the other day that you can punch in the details of a property, you can put all its features and benefits, and it will spit you out a fairly reasonable piece of copy. And for real estate agents, just for what it's worth, and for sellers, that costs a mighty sum of $145 a year, and you can do as many properties as you like through it. So when agents charge $400 and $500 and $600 for that, that is just a complete nonsense. The other aspect of this is that I've also noticed from some of the marketing ads that I've seen that agents are now charging production of and administration of advertising. So not only are sellers getting caught up in having to pay the advertising, which is huge, they're now getting charged to pay for somebody to do the advertising. So why, if you're a seller, would you want to do that? Some other aspects of advertising. Print media today is unbelievably dying, and I think everybody acknowledges that. That's why you have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have every other digital media. And for agents to promote print media is, again, really just profiling from their point of view. So what you've got to ask an agent is, if they suggest print media, you really have to ask what they're doing it for. Are they doing it for your benefit, or are they really doing it to promote themselves? So that's one aspect. And print media, I might say, there's a couple of magazines that go around Melbourne, and particularly one I can think of that's owned by real estate agents. And having said that, I know of a company local to us where they charge for copywriting and they charge for photography. I think we'll cover photos in a minute, but they charge for their photography and all the rest of it, which is fine. You need some decent photos on when you're promoting your home. But this company owns the companies that do that work. So agents are charging sometimes more money for the advertising component of what they're doing than they charge in fees for actually selling the home. So what they're really becoming is advertising agencies and not skilled negotiators. And ultimately, you'd be better paying less in advertising or nothing in advertising and paying somebody that can actually sell your home for the highest amount of money. So let's just go back to photography for your home. One of the aspects of photography is, I believe you really do need some half-decent photos. Do you need dusk shots? Do you need drone shots? Do you need, area shots? Possibly, yes. But the truth is, it's okay provided you're not having to pay for it. One of the aspects of good marketing is that when you go to buy anything, whether it's a car and particularly a home, is that when you go to the property, you've looked at some photos, you arrive at the house, you're pretty excited, it's in an area that you want to buy in, and what you then go through when you open the front door, and you walk in and all of a sudden your disappointment level starts to go. In other words, the hallway's much smaller than you thought. The lounge room's much smaller than you thought. The backyards are, a very tiny little effort. The painting looked fantastic in the photos, but it's pretty scrubby when you walk through the door. Now, with a buyer, what they do is their expectations are here, and by the time they get through the house, it's dropped away. That is not a way to sell anything. You'd be vastly better to have competent, good photos that enhance the property's good points, but ultimately what you really want to do is get buyers in and have them go, I think the lounge room is much bigger than it looks on the photos. I think that the backyard is stunning. It's got a great aspect. It didn't look as good on the photos. Wow, that is just terrific. So what you're engendering in a buyer is excitement and love for the property, and you're more likely to get a better outcome. So photos are important, but they're not the be-all and end-all. The other thing about, and there is some conjecture, and even within our training groups and things like that, when you advertise your property online, we never used to put the property address. We advertise a suburb and a price, and the reason that is that we want to get that buyer inquiry, and we want to get that buyer inquiry in front of a competent negotiator. Unfortunately today, lazy real estate is that you put the address up, you wait for buyers to make a decision from photos and copy, and if they ring, good-o. If they don't ring, bad luck, and what you get is salespeople that aren't salespeople, they're people, and they're actually messengers if anything. Without putting the address, that is a really good aspect from a real estate office to gain access to buyers. And what we would like to think is then we can speak to the buyers. It might be the right home for them. It may not be the right home for them. Even if it comes in as an email, we're happy to give the address, but at least we have a buyer's details, and that's what we're there to do, is to promote the home that we're selling and anything else that we have available in the market. So it's very important. Now, I understand in today's day and age that some people just want to look at the address, look at the property and move on. The question you've got to ask is, are they really buyers? They're lookers, they're information seekers. That's all fine, and I've done the same thing myself. But when you come to buy, from a buyer's point of view, but as a seller, what you want to do is you only really want to speak to buyers. You don't want to speak to lookers. You want to speak to somebody that can afford to buy your home today and have somebody standing shoulder to shoulder with you that can get the most amount of money for you. So I think that while there's a lot of contention about putting addresses, I'm not a huge fan of it. I have done in the past, and in fact, I said to somebody today, we were advertising a couple of properties on a main road, and we changed databases during the sale process. And when we were upgrading our database, while we don't usually put addresses, although I must admit, we do put the addresses of properties on our own website. But on realestate.com and Domain, we didn't have the addresses. We were getting regular inquiry on these properties. What happened is we changed the databases. The addresses happened to go up by accident. And for a week, we were sitting around at meetings and saying, that's very unusual, where our buyer inquiries dropped off. And in fact, when we went to check, the addresses were up there, and the minute that we removed them, our buyer inquiry went back up. So, it's I think for most people, you've got to make a decision. For us, we contend that it's probably better not to, but each area probably has its own bit. That's one thing. So photos, I think we've covered. The other area that is very important is staging homes. Now, again, this is an area that's grown up of recent years. In my early days in real estate, if somebody thought of staging a home, they must have been having a $20 million home, and that may well be relevant today. But again, I contend that a really competent real estate salesperson then they can paint a vision. They can demonstrate and advocate a property to a buyer where they can demonstrate the home's features and benefits. They can talk to a buyer. It's very important that they are able to do that, number one, and competently. But ultimately, staging a home, most buyers, I think, are pretty savvy these days. They know where they want to live. They know the price bracket that they're sort of in. And I think that some agents treat buyers as if they're silly. And buyers are pretty savvy. And that they can come through a property, they know whether they like it or not. Whether you've got a dining room table and lovely furniture, I am not convinced that it makes $1 difference to a home. I think it makes a selling difference. I think it's easier for a salesperson, perhaps lacking skill, to sell a home, but I'm certainly not convinced that a sophisticated negotiator and long-term operator in real estate it affects much value, or affects value particularly. But again, it's an easy sell for real estate salespeople. And I must admit, in my bad old days, in my early days in real estate, when I was working for some companies and some quite well-known brands, the fact is it was easy to sell real estate advertising because you're selling hope. People want to buy into the fact that if you spend lots of money, then I will get a great price. And if that was the case, my question to sellers is simply this. In Melbourne, where they claim that it's the auction capital of the world, that in a booming market, 75% of homes get sold or thereabouts. So a quarter fail. What happened with all that advertising? And they're still selling to the same buyers. So in any suburb, there's probably, I don't know, maybe a couple of handfuls of buyers at any one stage. It's like a tide. It washes buyers in, it washes buyers out. But competent agents would be on top of all this. So staging homes is, sure, you can spend money and agents will get you to spend money in every conceivable area that they can think of. And that is because it promotes the real estate company. And I might tell you, if you took away vendor paid advertising from most real estate offices today, there would be a number that would go out of business. And the reason is because they have no other way of promoting their office. So I ask all sellers to ask yourselves some serious questions when you're thinking of selling. Go through any agent's marketing and advertising schedule and question them deeply about things like why am I paying for an 8x6 board, a 2400 by 1800 board with photos and copy, and why am I paying for all that when probably on some properties that a postage stamp board would suffice. And having just mentioned that, a thought has come to me that it won't matter if you spend $1,000 or $0 or $100,000 in marketing, and that comes back to that quarter of properties that fail at auction, that if you spend all that money and your house doesn't sit in a price bracket that the market's willing to at least talk to you about, you are never going to sell a home. And it won't matter how much money that you throw at it, that will never happen. But I assure you that most real estate offices love vendor paid advertising. They want you to pay it up front. I had a piece of paper here. I think I can cover the company that uses it pretty well. But, you know, they have American Express, MasterCard. You can pay it up front or you can pay it at the end. But one way or the other, you will pay it. And another thing that is of a benefit for vendor paid advertising to agents, of course, is it's called skin in the game. In other words, if you have to pay, if you're committed to pay either prior or at the end of a campaign, private sale or auction, it really doesn't matter. If you're committed to pay $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, if it fails or you lose trust with the agent, or you believe that you've selected incorrectly, the psychology of most people is that they're unlikely to change agents. What they're going to say is, I've got to take $5, $10, $20,000, and I've got to walk into the middle of the road and I've got to light it. So I've got to light $5, $10, $20,000. Most people cannot do it. And what they simply do is they give a shrug of the shoulders. They go, all agents are the same. I better the devil I know. At least I know what I'm doing. I know I've been through the process. And so they stay. And agents rely on that fact. And that's unfortunately why real estate agents are right down the bottom of professions that are trusted. Unfortunately, we're lumped in with politicians, used car salesmen. My apologies to all used car salesmen, and to journalists, unfortunately. But the situation is agents know that. Agents are very adept at understanding the psychology of sellers. And as a seller, what you need to do is you need to take a big breath and a step back and ask the question where your money is going to genuinely go. So there's a few things on staging and talking to buyers. I think that the other area that comes up is some of the new age advertising, 360-degree video views, videos of the homes, walkthroughs of the homes. Again, if you are going to do all that, why not just get an advertising company to run it through, sell it yourself, and save yourself probably $10,000 or $15,000? I mean, that's just crazy. And it's not getting any better. The interesting thing about advertising and marketing, and agents call it marketing, but it's simply advertising. If you go through it, this is not how it used to be. The technology has changed, but the process is the same. Selling a house is not particularly difficult. As an agent of 30 plus years, selling a house is pretty straightforward. What all companies, all real estate companies, Aitken Real Estate included, what we're always looking for is more sellers. We can sell everything that we list, but what we're looking for is more sellers. So to sell a home, what our clients pay us for is to get the maximum amount of money. So that's what it's about for anybody trying to sell their home. What you want is somebody that's in there batting for you, standing shoulder to shoulder with you, and being able to competently explain why the people aren't coming through the home and why you're not getting the results you might be expecting. It has probably got a lot to do with perhaps your initial thoughts of what it's worth, or family and friends have a lot of impact on this. Somebody's auctioned their home. Somebody's spent $5,000 in advertising. Somebody's done that. Social proof dictates that you're probably likely to follow. This is what agents rely on as well. It's really important. There's some alternatives to what you can do with this too. So we can always expand on where advertising is spent, but you can. The alternatives are, there are some great agents around, really very good agents that don't believe that vendor paid advertising is in a seller's best interest. And what you can do is speak to those agents or give us a call, and we'll certainly put you on to them. But those agents believe that the agent should take the risk, that an agent should, if they're going to ask to sell your home, or you're going to give them that privilege, that they should run the risk. They should deliver the service before you pay them anything, including their fees. There was an interesting article that I was reading yesterday that a leading real estate trainer said that you have to pay vendor paid advertising because if you were going to sell your house, and this is the example he gave, if you were going to sell your house, that what you would do is if you were going to paint it, getting it ready for sale, and it didn't sell or it didn't reach the price that you were trying to achieve, then you would still be expected to pay the painter. And when I read that, I had to read it twice because that's just nonsense. And the nonsense is you'd have a painted house. At least you could sit back and walk into the house and go, that looks great on the outside, it looks great on the inside, but your house would be painted. With pretty much all of the advertising that agents ask you to pay for, you lose faith or you don't achieve what you want, you burn it. You simply light it, big fire of $100 bills, and away you go. Now, agents would say that they can demonstrate that advertising finds a buyer. Well, I can absolutely show you that isn't true, and I can give you dozens of agents that would agree with me. The agents that don't agree with me are the people that are using vendor paid advertising, of course, and they want the rivers of gold to keep running. The alternatives are this. When you go to sell your home, there's some basic things that you need. The first is you do need to put it on the internet. There's no question about that these days. Victoria's first choice will be realestate.com.au, even though at Aitken Real Estate we use all the other websites, Domain, homesales.com.au, our website. Really, you can, depending on what state you're in, whatever the most popular website is that's where you would put it. You don't need a feature property. You just simply don't need that. The other thing I might add is on these websites, when you see the agent's name along the side, all these websites keep charging agents for it. They're going to profile themselves by keep charging sellers to balance up their books. So you do need to be on the website. You need a board. I believe that you only need the name of the agent and a phone number. What you need is when you call that number, it should be answered 24/7, and it shouldn't be answered by one real estate salesperson. It should be really answered by a live answered service where all the salespeople in the office are notified, so you get the best, if you get bangs for your bucks, basically. So you certainly need a online presence. You need a board, and what you need is, I believe, private inspections. Now, at Aitken Real Estate, we believe that private inspections is the best alternative. Open for inspections, again, is relying on, if you've got a small house and you get a few people through, rooms look small, buyers want to point out all the faults in a property. So my view would be a private inspection handled by a competent salesperson who's talked to the buyer, that's taking a genuine buyer through your home, that wants to buy, that's ready to buy now, not in a month's time, not unless you've become a house museum and you want the local neighbourhood people just wandering through your home. So again, I would counsel most sellers to say there's some pretty basic things. To get your house ready for sale, staging isn't the big deal it is. What you really need is to try and declutter your home. That's a really good thing. I think that that's quite important. I also think that things like cleaning your home, making sure it's just nice and fresh, cutting your grass, giving it a whippersnip, maybe pulling a few weeds from the garden. But ultimately, if you can't do some of these things, a really good agent will be able to show a buyer through and overcome most of those problems. And I might add, buyers aren't dumb. Buyers will look at a house, they will not pay you any less because you have dirty dishes in a sink. It might be a pride issue on your part, and we'd like as an agent to not have go into rooms where there's tons of stuff, but we have sold many like that, and it is just nonsense to believe that buyers are stupid. I think that hopefully today we've been able to at least demonstrate some of the aspects of some of the advertising that, and I guess rorts is probably the wrong thing. I think it is a pretty big con though that keeps growing and growing, and it's getting bigger and bigger. There's some of the things that I was having a quick look. Excuse me, I put on some glasses, but there's Chinese websites that people would have you. People would have you go to, but some of these buyers from Chinese websites can't even, the buyers from them can't even buy your home. It's just nonsense. One of the other things is when you go to a real estate agency, you go because you presume that they have buyers. I mean, that's ultimately what you go to them for. Why would you think that you can go to a real estate office and not find buyers. So why are they charging you? Keep asking yourself, why are they charging me this amount of money to sell my home? The other question is, if they're going to open your home, why are they not giving you the senior people? And often that's the case. Sometimes they do, but often you get juniors and inexperienced people taking names and addresses. Again, you've got to ask yourself, what are you paying for? I haven't covered floor plans. Floor plans are a really interesting thing. We've been asked, we don't usually do them. We have done them occasionally if we think that it's relevant. But floor plans are one thing that, again, we want to bring the buyer back into the home. We want to be able to advocate the home's benefits and all its nuances to a buyer on a one-on-one basis. Having a floor plan with people sitting back at home, again, doesn't do the seller any good at all. Ultimately, when you buy or when you sell your home, hopefully what you've engaged is a genuine advocate on your behalf, a seller's advocate. That's what we're paid for as agents. That's what you're supposed to do. So this advertising side of it, while it is important to market the home, so there's other things you can do. Some agents prospect locally around the area. They knock on doors. They tell neighbours and friends because they mightn't have been looking for a home, but all of a sudden they're aware that a home's come up and a friend really wants to buy in the area and they haven't even been looking on the net or things like that. That's marketing. That's good. Real estate. But again, some of these advertising programs that I've seen, the people are charging for brochures, they're charging for letterbox drops, they're charging for all these things, whereas this is genuinely a normal part of real estate of any competent real estate salesperson. So there's a couple of things that you can do to help yourself with this. The trouble is that media, both television, internet, lots of websites will advocate vendor-paid advertising because everybody's got a finger in the pie. But there are a couple of good books around. Neil Genman wrote a book, Real Estate Mistakes, which is a really good book on selling your home, and it's also got some great notes about marketing. There's a book called, it's looking the opposite to me, but it's called Real Estate Uncovered by Peter O'Malley. That's another great, it's a book of modern selling. It talks about marketing, digital marketing and all the rest in today's environment. If you can't get your hands on either of those books, give me a call at Aitken Real Estate on 9583 0996. We'll send you a copy. We're more than happy to. If you want to have a chat to me at any stage or a discussion, please give me a call. I'd be happy to expand on some of these comments. So today's, I think we've come to the end of the what I was going to cover briefly. I think that the next broadcast we may talk about methods of sale. I hope it's been interesting, and I hope I've at least shone a light on some of the aspects of paid advertising, and perhaps given some sellers a minute's pause to think about how they might go about selling their most valuable asset in the future. For now, my name's Stephen Aitken from Aitken Real Estate. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers.